Airbags are the safety feature you hope you will never have to see. In the 30 years from 1987 to 2017, airbags saved 50,457 lives, more than enough to fill Yankee Stadium. Today, few would question their presence in cars, but airbags, which are required in all cars sold in America, are there because of a decades-long argument between safety advocates, who believed the devices could save countless lives, and skeptics who worried that potential costs and dangers might outweigh benefits. Their story illustrates how new safety technology and safety regulations can inspire controversy and even bitter fighting. The invention of the airbag is attributed to a few different people.
In the 1950s, there was a Navy man named John Hetrick who came up with this idea of an air pillow, an air cushion, and he actually had that patented.
Another inventor was a man named Alan Breed. Initially focused on technology for military clients, Breed used his knowledge of sensors and controlled explosions to invent the world's first airbag system in 1968. Breed founded the company Key Safety Systems, which was acquired by another safety equipment company, Ningbo Joyson, in 2016. Getting airbags into cars was a challenge.
Car manufacturers really weren't interested in talking a lot about safety. If we talk about safety, then we have to acknowledge that cars might not be safe, and that was a very difficult situation for them.
Manufacturers did experiment with them. Ford tested passenger-side airbags on some Mercury Montereys in 1971 and offered them as an option on the same car in 1972. GM fitted about 1,000 1973 Chevrolet Impalas with experimental airbags and allowed fleet customers, such as insurance companies, to test them.
When the Vehicle Research Center here opened in the early 1990s, our inaugural crash test was in 1973 Chevy Impala with that special airbag.
Despite the fact that the cars were 20 years old at the time of the test, with dead batteries and other non-functioning parts, the airbags deployed perfectly.
And so we proved that more than 20 years later, that airbag still functioned properly and provided additional protection for occupants in that vehicle.
GM offered airbags as a $180 to $300 option on some vehicles from 1974 through 1976. The first GM production car with a driver's side airbag sold as an option was the 1974 Oldsmobile Toronado. Despite these early experiments, there was a lot of resistance to putting airbags in cars. NHTSA was created in 1970 and in that same year issued a rule to make airbags mandatory in all new cars. Joan Claybrook, a safety advocate who was working at NHTSA around that time and who later headed the agency, said the rule met with a lot of opposition.
And the final rule was finally issued in the fall of 1970. And the auto industry went crazy.
Ford and Chrysler chief executive Lee Iacocca was a prominent opponent of them, saying so at least as late as his 1984 autobiography.
And Lee Iacocca and Henry Ford, that's when Lee worked for Henry Ford, came to see President Nixon. Pissed and moaned about the airbag and rear fuel tank protection and so on. Cost too much. The Japanese were taking over the industry. This is in 1970. When there were virtually no Japanese cars on the market. And so Nixon said, okay, kill the airbag.
That was the start of what Claybrook calls the long and tortuous history of the airbag in America. For years, rules and legislation went back and forth, often with safety advocates and insurance companies on one side and automakers and free market advocates on the other. At one point, Nixon's Secretary of Transportation, William Coleman, suggested instead of a rule mandating bags, a public demonstration of airbag technology.
And there's this humongous fight, and Bill Coleman, he fought them tooth and nail and wouldn't let them go on vacation over Christmas until they agreed. I mean, it was an hysterical battle. And eventually they agreed because they wanted to go on vacation.
Cost was a concern, but critics also alleged the airbag was being forced on consumers and that it was an insufficiently tested technology that posed its own risks. Child deaths drew a lot of attention. From 1990 to 2008, frontal airbags caused more than 290 deaths in low-speed crashes. Most of them were in cars made before 1998. Most involved passengers who were not wearing seatbelts or were improperly restrained, and most victims were children. Around this time, government agencies like the National Transportation Safety Board said the problem was due largely to parents who were placing children in front seats instead of car seats in the rear. By 2001, child deaths related to airbags were dropping precipitously, and it was attributed to changes in parent behavior. Safety advocates and regulators said airbags still saved many more lives than they claimed. Eventually, advocates such as Claybrook prevailed, and since 1998, frontal airbags have been required on all passenger cars and required on all SUVs and vans since 1999. Since the 2014 model year, almost all new passenger cars come with side airbags. One NHTSA report said front airbags reduce driver fatalities in frontal crashes by 29% and fatalities of front seat passengers aged 13 and older by 32%. Another indicated side airbags that protect the head reduce a car driver's risk of death in driver's side crashes by 37% and an SUV driver's risk by 52%. Faulty airbags caused the biggest recall in automotive history. The Takata airbag scandal, which blew out into the open in 2015, led to the recall of about 67 million airbags. The U.S. Department of Transportation fined the airbag maker $200 million in 2015, the largest civil penalty in NHTSA's history. The U.S. Department of Justice also levied a penalty of $1 billion in 2017 and charged 3 executives with wire fraud and conspiracy. Takata went bankrupt and was later bought by Ningbo Joyson and merged with Key Safety Systems, the very company founded by airbag pioneer Alan Breed. Airbags do not work the way they are sometimes depicted in films.
When you see a TV show and an airbag deploys and it's inflated like forever and someone's trying to fight their way out of it, that's not how airbags work in reality. They're very quick acting. They tend to deploy in 10 to 50 milliseconds of a crash happening, so in the blink of an eye. They're also then deflated within about 1/10 of a second. They've done their job during the phase of the crash where you're most likely to be injured.
At the moment of a crash, a sensor on a car sends a signal to the airbag's computer system telling it to inflate the airbag. The system ignites some chemicals, and they produce a harmless gas that inflates the bag in 1/20th of a second. It needs to be extremely quick. It only takes about 50 milliseconds for a driver's body to collide with the steering wheel. There are front airbags, side and curtain airbags, airbags that deploy near the rear window to protect passengers from impacts in that direction, and even airbags for the knees. It is not uncommon at all for cars to have 9 or 10 airbags in them today, most of them not even required by law. Airbags usually deploy in moderate to severe crashes. If an airbag does not deploy during a crash, it may just be that the crash was not severe enough to activate the accelerometers that engage the system. Some cars come with sensors in the seats that can detect the size of a person sitting in the seat. If the system thinks the seat is holding a child or a person of small stature, it might shut off the airbags. Even if a car is equipped with these shut-off sensors, NHTSA still recommends seating a child under 13 in the rear seat. Some automakers have found that further improvements can be made to airbags. Honda co-developed an airbag with top airbag maker Autoleave that provides extra protection to passengers, especially passengers in crashes where a car is struck at an angle. Current airbags are great in head-on collisions, but Honda said its research found that a lot of passengers still suffer brain injuries in crashes, even with airbags, when a car is hit at an angle. The reason for this is the force from the impact at an angle, say even slightly on the side of the car, can cause an occupant's head to rotate, often violently. This can cause brain tissue damage. The automaker found that actually a slight majority, 56% of these crashes, occur at some kind of an angle.
It's called diffuse axonal injury, where the axons in the brain tissue actually, shear and separate, causing anything from like coma, speech loss, all of these types of traumatic injuries from diffuse axonal injury. How diffuse axonal injury actually occurs is the tissue of your brain wanting to rotate or move relative to your skull. It's a very, very fast phenomena that occurs. And again, this was studied heavily through the biomechanics community. They've turned that into an engineering equation where we look at head rotational velocities, and we can kind of predict these brain injury metrics.
Conventional airbags tend to have one chamber that fills with air. The new Honda design has 3, with a piece of mesh cloth that holds them in place. When the airbag deploys, the mesh sail panel, as it is called, provides a first layer of cushioning for the passenger's face and also draws the outer wings of the airbag inward toward the passenger's head. The effect is like that of a baseball mitt. The 3 chambers essentially enfold the occupant's head, shielding it from dangers from multiple directions. The airbag was even nicknamed the catcher's mitt.
The catcher's mitt is designed to kind of first gently engage you with that airbag, with that sail panel. And then the outboard chambers kind of help cradle the sides of your head and kind of keep you engaged to that center chamber to help manage the overall crash energy. And that's really what's unique about this design, is it's got 3 chambers versus 1 that really control the occupant's rotation of the head.
Honda jointly holds the patent with Autoliv, and the patent is available for other automakers to use. Right now, the 2 Honda vehicles that use this design are the Acura MDX SUV and the Acura TLX sedan. A separate Honda team in Japan worked on a design to also tackle the problem of head rotations and brain injuries and crashes, and came up with designs that are now included on both the driver and passenger sides of Honda Civic vehicles. Honda has a target of 0 crash-related deaths in its cars by 2050. Korean automaker Hyundai unveiled an airbag concept called the Hyundai Hug. The bag is deployed from the passenger seat and is made of air-filled chambers and tethers that draw the bag around the body of the passenger. The idea is to hug the passenger in place and protect them from a collision in any direction. The design is specifically intended for cars with seating arrangements that may be different from the common forward-facing seats. The automaker has positioned the Hyundai Hug as a bag specifically suited to the age of autonomous vehicles. While vehicle-related deaths have plummeted in large part due to the adoption of passive safety technologies such as airbags, automakers are now setting their sights on a world with 0 fatalities and serious injuries.